Uh, Sir, I have enabled the recording.
Okay, nice, nice. Yeah.
Okay.
Now let us go to the code.
So you want me to go through the code for you, or should I explain it?
Yeah, like explain for me and also for Saurabh so that we understand how it works.
Okay. So, Saurabh, do you know about MVC framework?
Yes, I know. I have little idea about this framework, but I think you explain it a little bit so that everyone can get a grasp about it.
Okay. So, actually, I prepared some notes, but okay. So, actually, MVC framework. So, let's begin like this. So actually, in this repository, like in this e-commerce backend, we have
Yes.
a few classes. We have divided the classes in few packages. So one is the controller, other is the service, one is the repository, and the other is the database. Database, we are using MySQL database. Okay.
Yes.
So
Okay.
what happens is that we have a database and we create a model class, and that model class represents the database. So it is basically we are mapping a database entry with the object. Okay. So let me show you. We implemented this wishlist feature for our backend. So as you can see, this is a model class for wishlist, and uh, this is the entity class as well. So writing this annotation here means this is a table in my database, and here the name of the class and the name of the table is same. Matlab, you can ignore this capital W. So we do not have to specify it, but if it is different, then we have to specify this parameter also.
Okay.
Let me show you the scheme of the database, so that way you will understand it better. Mm. So this is the database e-commerce, and now this is a table here, wish list. And as you can see, the table name is wishlist, and there are four columns: ID, user ID, created date, and product ID. So, as you can see, at the rate entity means this class represents a table, and the table name is wishlist. This parameter is optional if the class name is same as the table name.
Okay.
Then there is this annotation at the rate ID. It is used for identifying the primary key.
Okay.
So in this class we have created an object. It is integer and its name is ID, and we are saying that this represents the ID of our database, the primary key of our database, which is this field.
Okay, one thing, Shubham, you're going on the right direction. So I have to leave, but please continue, and you're doing great. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir.
Shall we continue?
Yeah, we can continue.
Okay, so next we have created another object. It's called user ID. And
Okay.
with this annotation, we are saying that this represents our user ID column.
Yes. Yes.
Same is with product ID also, and with created date.
Okay. And this non-blank annotation means that its value cannot be null, right?
Yeah, that it means that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then actually what, as you can see in the database, there is product
Mhm.
ID only.
Yes.
So we do not have the product details, right?
Yes. Yes.
So actually what we wanted to do was we wanted to join the products table with this. Do you know join
Okay.
query in SQL?
Yes. Yes.
So for that, we have made one more object. It's called product, and
Okay.
this product class is also an entity. Let me just show you.
Yes, that will be another table in the database, right?
Yeah, exactly. So as you can see, this is the products class, the product class,
Okay. Yes.
and this is an entity.
Hmm.
So here, by defining this, we are saying that we
Hmm.
want to, this is a many-to-one relationship,
Okay.
because many entries in this table, because many users can have one product in their wish list, the same product.
Yes.
So it is
Yes.
many-to-one relationship,
Yes.
and
And this cascade type.
this is for operations. It is something like that. If I create, if I delete a product from product table, then it should get
Yeah.
deleted from here as well.
Yes. Okay.
So there are more services like this. Like if we do something there, then it should reflect here also. So remove is one of the things. There are others also. All means
Yes.
we
We can
want
set it to null. Yeah.
yeah,
We can set the values in this wish list table to null if a product is deleted from the product table, right?
yeah. If the product is deleted, then the entry will get deleted automatically.
Uh,
This
okay.
thing takes care of that. It does not make it
Okay.
null. It
Yes.
deletes it.
Hmm. Okay.
If you want only that delete feature, you can write here remove.
Oh,
So
yes.
it
Okay.
will
Fine.
use it will do that only. It will take care while deleting only. But all means it will take care of other operations also.
Okay. Fine.
And then we are saying that you have to join column product ID, which is in this database, to
Yes.
the ID of the product database, to the product table.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so this is
Hmm.
that. And then we have simply created a constructor, and these are the
Hmm.
getters and setters.
Okay. Fine.
Okay, so this is called object relation mapping.
Hmm.
We are mapping an object with entry in a relational database.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
so now that we have defined the object, we know how to store each entry. We now have to
Yes.
fetch the entry, right?
Okay. Okay.
So for this, Spring provides an interface, sorry, a class called JP repository.
Okay.
So if you extend this class, you will automatically get a lot of methods for
Yes.
interacting with the database. So some methods are like find all. You do
Hmm.
not have to mention method here, find all. You can
Yeah.
call it automatically.
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Actually, what we wanted to do was we wanted to find all all the products, all the entries of a given user ID,
Okay.
and sort it according to the created date.
Yes.
So this
Okay.
thing we have to define here because it is not
Hmm.
defined by default.
Okay.
But Spring
Yes.
can understand this name. So basically, it will create a query which will find all
Hmm.
by user ID, and it will order it
Okay.
by created date in descending order.
Okay.
So it is not like
That's
that
nice.
you can give any name to this method. There is a pattern
Okay.
which Spring follows. So it will create automatically, it will create the query by recognizing this thing, this name.
Okay. Okay.
So like this find all and other, there are other functions which you do not have to define. They
Okay.
are by default.
Okay.
But for such complicated queries, you have to define it here.
Okay.
Okay, so then what? So this is an interface, right? This is not a class.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we have to now make a class for this interface.
Yes.
So we are doing this here. This is the service
Yes.
class,
Okay. Okay.
and we define like we do it this way because this class can define all the business logic and all.
Hmm.
Like suppose if you want to, if you are fetching something from the database, and then you want to manipulate it before you send a response to the API.
Yes.
So
Okay.
that all logic you can write here.
Okay.
So here, what we have done is we have created an object of this repository,
Hmm.
and then we have simply created a constructor. in which we are initializing this variable.
Like, can we use the Autowired annotation here?
Uh, we I guess this is the bean only. Do you know what this Autowired and all are doing?
Mm. Autowired, like it does the dependency injection, so we don't have to manually deal with the initialization of any objects by our own. It takes
Okay,
care of that.
okay. Actually, that is correct, but we will deal with it later. Okay, let me just explain the flow.
Yeah,
Then,
yeah, yeah.
then I
Fine, fine.
guess you will understand that Autowired notation in a better
Okay,
way.
fine. Okay, fine.
Okay, so let's just say that we are creating a reference variable,
Mm.
and here we are basically assigning that reference to an object. Okay,
Okay, okay.
and then we have created a method called create wishlist, and this save method is there by default, and in
Okay.
this I am passing a wishlist object that
Okay.
contains the data which we got from the API.
Mm.
We will see how to map it into this later,
Okay.
but this
Okay.
basically means that save this object in the database
Mm.
using that entity
Okay.
class.
Fine.
Okay,
Mm.
and similarly this is the read wishlist, that is we want to
Mm.
fetch from the database, and as you can see
Mm.
I'm using that method here.
Yes. Okay.
So this thing basically returns a list of all the entries which are
Mm.
represented by the wishlist class.
Mm.
Is it clear till here?
Yes, yes. This is clear.
Okay, so now let's go to the controller. So as you
Okay.
know, controller defines the API endpoint.
Mm.
So
Yes.
at the REST controller means this is a controller class,
Mm.
and request mapping wishlist means that all these thing will start. This API, these class represent the API which have the starting address as slash wishlist. Hello,
Yes. I can
Uh,
hear you.
you got
Yep.
this right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so now just forget about this autobad notation.
Okay.
We are
Okay.
again creating a reference variable to this wishlist service.
Okay.
Forget this. This is something
Okay.
we have added later.
Authentication. Yeah.
Just forget this.
Mm.
And then
Okay.
we have this post mapping. We'll see this later. Let's see this post mapping
Mm.
first. So here I have mentioned
Mm.
slash add. So this means that to call this method,
Mm.
you have to make a request to slash wishlist slash add.
Slash add. Okay.
Okay. So basically,
Okay.
alternative is that you can remove this line and you can add slash wishlist slash add here.
Mm.
But then I have to add slash wishlist here also because it is my requirement
Yes. Yes.
that I want it to begin with
Yes.
wishlist. So that's why I added this line here
Mm.
so that I do not have to repeat it again and
Yes.
again.
Mm.
So here, when you make a request to this slash add slash wishlist slash add endpoint using a post
Mm.
request, so this method will
Okay.
get triggered.
Okay.
Okay, and here response entity means response entity basically contains the response of the API.
Okay.
So since it will have to return a response, so we have made
Mm.
its return type as response, like a response
Okay.
entity.
Mm.
And API response is a class that we have made here. So it basically creates, it basically has two things, a Boolean and a string
Yes.
message. So
Mm.
we will pass true and some message if it is, if the request is successful, otherwise we will pass false. We'll see how we are doing that later. Okay, and now here comes the Spring Boot portion again. So this is add wishlist. This is
Mm.
something which I have defined. It is not that you have to use this only. There is no
Okay.
naming convention and all for here.
Yes.
And at the rate request body product means that See, in post request, we send some body also, right? Containing some data.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So normally it is in JSON format. So in the front end, we are sending a JSON format. Let me show you.
Mm.
So so we are making a request to this endpoint, right? So if you can see, we will pass this data.
Mm.
So this contains a field description, ID, image,
Okay.
URL, name, and price, right? So these fields should be similar to this. Where is it? The product class. See, the names are same. Description, price, image, URL, name.
Mm.
Hello?
Ah, yes. I can hear.
Okay, so what this annotation is doing, it is simply converting JSON into a product object. Hello?
Ah, yes. Yes. You can carry on.
So this annotation is basically converting a JSON into this product object. So how?
Yes.
Uh, by considering the name of these fields in this product class.
Mm.
So if
Mm.
these are same to the JSON keys, then it will be able to map it automatically.
Okay.
Okay. So and at the rate
Okay.
request param means that while sending this, while making this request, I will have a URL parameter.
Yes.
It will
Yes.
be slash add question mark token equals to something.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
मतलब,
So that's the bearer token, right?
yeah, when I
The
will,
authentication token.
yeah, that is the authentication token. So I will pass something like this.
Mm.
Token equals to and its value here.
Mm.
So this
Okay.
this thing will take care of it. It will
Okay.
search this token, this thing. If it
Mm.
should match, it will search this
Mm.
and it will assign its value to this variable, to the string
Okay.
token. Okay.
Okay.
So now this is we are getting a token, and if you remember, we were
Mm.
storing user ID in the database, right?
Yes.
So we have
Yes.
to get the user ID from this token. So for this, we are using
Mm.
this authentication service.
Okay.
Other than that, it has no use. So it is just for that. And
Okay.
then what? Once
Mm.
we have got the user ID, what we are doing is we are creating a wishlist object by
Okay.
passing the user ID and the ID from this product.
Yes.
So this was the wishlist class. So we are basically passing the value of this field and this field.
Okay.
We are not passing the value of this because in the database, I have mentioned that it will be created automatically.
Okay.
As you can see, its default value is current timestamp. So we do not have to
Yes.
pass it.
Okay.
So essentially,
Okay.
if
Good.
whenever you ask the repository to create an entry and you pass an object with fields uninitialized,
Mm.
then it will not
Okay.
be entered into the database unless you have created a default value or something like that.
Mm.
I do not have to basically assign anything to created underscore date because I have set a default value there.
Yes.
Okay, and now I'm basically calling this method of wishlist service, and as you can see
Mm.
that in this method we were simply saving it. This was the method, and we are simply saving
Yes.
this object in the
Okay.
database. And because of
Okay.
that entity annotation, Spring Boot knows which field
Mm.
to enter in which column, right?
Okay.
So now so is there
Yes.
any doubt till here other than that @autowired annotation?
No, no.
Okay, so
It's fine. You can continue.
okay, so let me explain that autowired annotation. So suppose there is no annotation here, right? No autowired annotation. So in that case, what we have to do is
Hmm.
every time somebody contacts this API, we would have to create a new object. Like, we would have to do
Okay.
something like this, right? Like, we would have to initialize it again and again.
Yes.
So creating objects is intensive task, and we know that we need this object
Hmm.
every time. So what Spring Boot does is
Hmm.
if using some annotations, we tell Spring Boot that we will
Hmm.
require an object of this class, and we need only one object. And there will be many times when we will require it. So Spring Boot will say, okay, I will create a container and I will initialize this object only one
Okay.
time. And whenever somebody requests, I will give this instance of the object.
Okay.
So if you can see,
Okay.
let me go to the repository. Okay, let me go to the service. Matlab, this annotation abstracts a lot of other annotations. So let's discuss about the service.
Hmm.
Okay, here also we do not have that. Let's go to the controller. Okay, there is, I can't give you an explanation. Let me use my notes. So one way is that what we do is, suppose we have a class ink supply. Okay, and we will be
Okay.
calling it
Okay.
every time. Matlab, whenever we contact our API, we will
Hmm.
need an object of this class. So we will tell,
Okay.
so by writing this annotation @component, we tell Spring Boot that this is one
Hmm.
class whose object we will require a lot of time, and we need only one object.
Okay.
So whenever
Okay.
we run the application, Spring Boot will search for this annotation, and it will realize that this is one object that I have to place it in a container.
Hmm.
Okay, so now what happens is,
Okay.
uh, so this is another class printer, and in this printer, I want to use that object, this ink supply object.
Okay.
So now
Okay.
since we have stored it in the container, so using this
Hmm.
@autowired annotation, Spring Boot will realize that I have to assign this ink supply reference to that object which I created in the container.
Hmm.
Okay, so in this way,
Okay.
we do not have to initialize this. If I write this annotation, Spring Boot will automatically
Yes.
assign this reference to the object which it created at the starting.
Hmm.
So that means
Yes.
if I change anything in this object here in this class, then it will get
Okay.
reflected everywhere else
Okay.
also. Because we have only one object in the container, and Spring Boot is simply referring this reference variable to that single object.
Yes.
Okay, and @component here again means that create this printer, create an object inside a, what we can say, inside the container. So if I call printer in some other class, then it will assign that single object of printer, and inside that
Hmm.
it will assign this single object of ink supply. So basically we can have a
Okay.
chain of objects.
Yes.
So this is what Autowired does. So
Hmm.
basically what happens is, as you can see here, let me show this @repository. Actually, this is an abstraction. So suppose if you do not want to
Hmm.
use this annotation here, then you will have to use another annotation. Like, there will be 2, 3 annotations. Uh, are you getting what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Uh, Actually, what I'm
Continue.
trying to convey is that suppose you do not want to use this annotation. So in place of this
Okay.
annotation, you will have to write a couple of other annotations, right? So one of this will be component. So basically this annotation
Okay.
repository, it is an abstraction for a number of annotations.
Okay.
So like
Okay.
@REST controller, this is also an abstraction. Matlab, if you do not want to use this, you can use, let me just recall it. Yeah, so if you don't want to use this REST controller, you can use these two annotations
Okay.
instead of this. So basically, it is an
Controller
abstraction
and
for
response
these
pub.
two.
Okay.
So similarly, this repository and service, they are also an abstraction, and they must be containing @component annotation within themselves.
Okay.
So now, do you realize what is the use of this @Autowired annotation?
Yes, yes, yes. Now I can get it.
So, this is a very basic description of the Spring Boot.
So the feature is like elaborated, right? So I think we can finish the recording now.
Yeah, this is just that you know what you are doing, and then definitely you can explore on it.